Newsviews. I'm Judy Sue. My guests here this morning are political science professors Twyla Blackman-Larnell from Loyola University and Wayne Steger of DePaul. And we're continuing our conversation right now. My question is regarding these last-minute campaign ads. What does research show? How much does this sway voters when it comes to the primary election?
Well, in this case, we have somewhere between a quarter and a third of Democratic identifiers who are undecided. Speaking to that race. So there's a lot of potential to move the needle, so to speak, for each and every candidate. This is, while JB has a fairly firm lead at this point, he's by no means a sure thing at all. And so the undecided voters who are just tuning in right now, ads are humongously important just in terms of developing name recognition, developing that kind of emotional image that the candidates want to have to resonate with voters.
I also want to ask about the Attorney General race, another crowded race. So what happens there? What's the strategy right now?
So interestingly, most people don't even know what the Attorney General does.
That's true.
And so if name recognition is important for the gubernatorial race, it's even more important for the Attorney General race. And with that, Pat Quinn has a huge advantage. But attorney generals also do not use campaign ads to the same extent as the gubernatorial races. So that race is going to be a lot about name recognition. But I also want to add, as we get closer to elections, whether it's the primary or the general, we see an uptick in negative ads. Because you asked, how can people be swayed by ads as we get closer to the election? And it's the negative ads. Negative ads have way more power to sway someone's political ideas than positive ads.
Really? Okay.
Yes. We're way more negative people than we like to
react to that a little bit more.
We react to negative news way more, right? Because of the emotional and attitudinal affect. And so what we're going to see, even within the same party, right, is that we're going to start seeing more negative ads. And it may not be attack ads per se, but the ads are going to have a more negative tone as they try to, again, distinguish themselves from the other gubernatorial or attorney general candidates.
What about voter fatigue? Because we do feel like we're bombarded with these ads, right? And for so long now. How do campaigns deal with that? Is that something that they strategically think about?
I don't know if they think about it, but it's something they should be. Voter fatigue, I mean, we're talking basically 3 years in a row, because with the hyper politics at the national level, the engagement, you know, the fatigue is becoming real. And indeed, that may be the Democrats' biggest problem. The fatigue might come on their side. Going back to the ads, basically trying to get voter turnout is going to be critical more than persuasion at this point. And so if using the negative ads to try and drive down the turnout, you know, and the enthusiasm of a candidate, supporters in particular, really important at this point. And so, you know, for Biss and Kennedy, trying to keep down, you know, JB's turnout is everything. And on, you know, the Republican race, which we haven't talked much about, that one's, you know, you've got basically an unpopular governor, and everybody knows it.
But with a name that you know, right?
Name that you know. His opponent's unknown and doesn't apparently have the money to become known. And so I don't think that race is going to be particularly close, even though
well, I want to ask about that, too, you know, the different strategy between the incumbent versus somebody who is the challenger in this case.
Well, it's no surprise that she is a lesser-known candidate because Rauner is the incumbent. The political parties are generally more likely to put support behind a candidate who's already in office as opposed to try to put forth a new candidate against someone who's already in their party that's in office, right? It's better strategy. And so the other candidate may or may not have the same amount of support, not just from the base, the Republican base in the state, but from party members in the state as well, because you're spending more money on a candidate when you already have one in office.
Okay, I have another question. So opposition research, that happens, you know, all of the time.
Right.
So so that continues right now going into the campaign. At what point, if you find information, one camp finds information about the other, do you strategically leak that? I mean, is there science behind that too?
And I would say, you know, if we go back in history, the opposition research that was done against Blair Hull back when Barack Obama first ran for the U.S. Senate, that was critical, and it was about a month out, all right? So if there's any bombshells, it would be right now. Frankly, the Rauner ads, you know, using the tapes and the Blagojevich information, that's opposition research right there, classic example, and it's out there in spades. Rauner does not want to run against J.B. Pritzker.
Very good discussion. Thank you both for coming in and joining us here on Newsviews. And that does it for us for Newsviews on this Sunday. Thank you for joining us.